Yeah, it would have been interesting to see what would have happened with 12 more overs there. So I guess a draw at the end of the day is what Duckworth came out to, and we gave it our best shot, and I guess some things went our way and some things didn't. The way the Indians bowled at the death, a couple of misfields from us, but we also took a lot of wickets. We took 4 wickets. So we gave ourselves the best chance possible, and at the end of the day, nothing could decide between us. So that is what it is.
Does it feel good for you to get some runs on a personal level?
Yeah, it's always nice to get runs, but for me it's more about trying to get my process right and sticking to that for as long as possible, and I think I did that today.
You've had a great few weeks in T20. You're obviously still trying to establish yourself in one day as you're heading forward to the next series. You're excited about the chance to potentially play in some of these matches and try and make a case for yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. As I said, for me, it's trying to stick to the process as long as possible and just take it one ball at a time. And if that opportunity comes, to be able to keep it that simple for myself. And I guess all the other boys are going out there and doing their things as well. And with our team first mentality, it doesn't really matter who's out on the park. They're all trying to do the same thing for the country.
Rahul, was there a bit of disappointment thinking that you left a few runs out there tonight? You were 130 for 2 and to finish on 160. Was there in the changing room at the halfway stage, what was the discussion around that?
At the end of the day, 2 teams have to bat on it before it becomes one pitch or another. And yeah, we obviously felt like we probably did leave a couple out there. We got ourselves into a position to get a much bigger total, but the way the Indian boys bowled at the death was magnificent. So I guess at the end of the day, in a game with such small margins, something that can turn so quickly, I think it was something like 3 wickets for 12 runs or 3 wickets for 6 runs and 12 balls or something like that. So cricket has ways of turning things on you really, really quickly. So you can't exactly take anything for granted. And but obviously we managed to have 3 wickets in the power play. So it was a little bit of a toss and turn in terms of which parts of the game ebbed and flowed. Obviously for the Indian boys, it was right at the back end, and for us, it was more at the front. So, and at the end of the day as well, if they had lost those 4 wickets, potentially they would have been well ahead of the Duckworth-Lewis as well. So it's a little bit tit for tat.
It's a good one. Is there a bit of frustration with, you guys lost in the semi-finals, you had one bad day there. This series too, it's come down to that one game in Mount Maunganui especially. Is there a bit of frustration that, it's a real cruel format? Yeah,
I guess we all know that. T20 cricket has the ability to go one way or another so quickly, and it just takes an innings like Sky did the other day to just turn things on its head, and that was magnificent to watch. Even being on the field, we don't necessarily want that to happen to us, but it was very special to watch. And as things come down to it, the semi-final didn't necessarily go the way we wanted it to go, but we fought right to the last over. And for us, it's about our attitude and our presence that we bring to the game. So I guess in terms of frustration side of things, there'll always be individual frustration for guys and how they perform, but that's in their review process. I don't think we try and take any sort of frustration going into the next games. We just, I guess, try to focus on things we can control, and that's our attitude, our presence, our energy in the field. Even today with a couple of misfields, guys were going in hard, each running past one. I would much rather a guy run past one than miss it, not running fast enough. So things like that, that's the sort of attitude we're after, regardless win, lose or draw.
Glenn, Jasprit Bumrah is obviously not there for a long time, and not too many senior fast bowlers are part of this squad. In that context, when you see the likes of Arshdeep Singh and Mohammad Siraj, the way they came back, a word on that?
Yeah, man. The Indians have so much depth. The IPL just shows that. And it's laid a platform for guys like Ashdeep and Siraj to come in and know that they can already perform at this level. And the control that Ashdeep has, swinging the ball both ways, with Bhuvi up the front there, is an incredible skill to have, especially being able to hit hole at the death on demand. Siraj's pace and bounce today really was quite tough to play. He was very aggressive, and I guess that's something that's come from playing through the IPL, where you have to give it your all 100% no matter what, because the stakes are so high and the intensity of the game is so high. So, and the likes of Harshal Patel as well, the depth coming through the Indian squad is unbelievable.
Glenn, when you see someone like Surya Kumar Yadav, especially the kind of 360-degree game he has, as a batsman, when you see him going, what is the first thing? What strikes you most?
The thing that strikes me the most is actually how he manages to predict where the ball is going so well. I was talking with Flem before the game, and it's not necessarily about the premeditation per se. He has a rough idea of where the bowler's going to bowl set by the field, but he still has the ability to guess which ball it's going to be and then have bailout options if it's not there. And unlike other people, his bailout options still seem to go for 4 or 6. You know, that shot off Lockie the other day was hard length on off stump, and he managed to hit it over third man for 6 with a straight bat. So that definitely strikes me as something that is next level. Obviously, playing with so much premeditation obviously has its downfalls as well, but while you're flying high, absolutely, and it's unbelievable to watch.
Thank you.
Glenn, hi. Glenn, is there a template or a code for to play T20 cricket? Or we talk about the way England play T20 cricket. Is there a template that you have to go hard to the ball right from the start?
I guess England can do that because they bat all the way to 11. But when other sides have 6 specialist batters and an all-rounder, I guess you have to be a little bit more level about how you go about the approach. It comes down more to the communication and I suppose the adjustment to pitches and trying to use different sort of skill sets. Unlike what England are able to do, if one guy doesn't come off, the next guy will come off. And if he doesn't come off, the next guy will come off all the way down to number 11, whereas in most sides only have out to number 7. So I guess everybody's got their role to play. Like for us, Finn is the guy that goes out there and tries to enforce. And for us, in terms of our blueprint and our game plan, we have that sort of mentality where we want to throw first punches and all that sort of stuff. But if that doesn't go to plan, what's the next plan? What's going to hold us instead to be able to get us to a total to at least give our bowlers something to bowl at, or vice versa the other way around when we're chasing, trying to stay up at the rate. And, I suppose that's a very generic game plan, but it does go with the ebbs and flows of T20 cricket, and it allows us to communicate with each other, understand what the pitch is doing or what the bowlers are doing, and ideally make a plan going forward. And we may not always get that right, but I guess with the number of games that we've actually won in the last sort of 2-3 years, I suppose that game plan has held us in pretty consistent stead. We may not necessarily blow teams out of the water, but we're always there or thereabouts. We're always niggly. We're always fighting. We get into games, and I think for us, the more games that we can get into, the more chance we have of winning them, as opposed to us trying to play the style that England plays and then capitulating probably more often potentially.
It's been a long time since the subcontinent nations, any team from the subcontinent won a T20 ICC T20 trophy, World Cup rather. So is it that their methods or their way of playing T20 cricket has now become obsolete in terms to how an Australian team plays, how an English team plays, or even New Zealand for that matter?
I personally don't think so. There's obviously speculation and everything going around about the way T20 cricket is being played at the moment and where it's going forward. And I suppose everyone wants to see those 200, 190 games. But at the end of the day, when you're playing for your country, you're playing to win. And as I said before, it comes down to trying to adjust to the pitch on the day. And those pitches may not necessarily allow for 180, 190 scoring games. But as entertaining as that is, and as a batsman, I'd absolutely love that. But I don't necessarily think the way that India or us or anybody for that matter is going about their batting game plans in a right or wrong way per se. If it comes off and it works and say a team only gets 160, 170 and they defend it, then people say, well batted, you had a good tempo for the innings. But if the team chases it in 16 overs, then it's hard to say without looking back. It's comparisons with different players, different skill sets, different teams, and I think we all have to use our strengths as much as possible. The Indian side has an amazing batting lineup, and at some stage they're going to come off and potentially score 230 in a T20 game. They have the ability to do that, but what they're also trying to do is be in the game, always try and be in a position to win, even if it means soaking up a few balls if they have to in order to come back later on. Unfortunately, if you go with the approach of soaking up a few balls to try and finish the innings well, and the innings doesn't finish well, like today could happen, for example, but you could only be on 80 as opposed to 130, that situation then looks really, really bad. But if it comes off, you get 160 on a really tough pitch. So it's a little bit of a tough one.
Last couple, Aidan.
Level played. Partnership of 86 off just over 10 overs with Devon. Can you talk us through how the two of you communicated in the middle about how you were going to construct and pace that partnership as it went through the innings?
Yeah, I guess after the power play, they bowled really well up front. Huda bowled that really tight over straight after the power play, and with Chahal coming on afterwards, it was, I guess, for us about keeping the intent, knowing that the boundaries are small and playing really strong positive options, low risk positive options, to get ourselves into a position to utilise Daryl and Nish and Satner at the end. Yes, that didn't necessarily come off today, but the idea of getting us into that position to be able to earn the right to launch from that platform, I think, was the right idea. And as I said before, on another day we could have ended up on 200 potentially from that position. And I think that's really strong positives going forward. And we made a lot of right choices today. And all we have to do is make those right choices for a little bit longer and a little bit more, and things to come off a bit more. And those games really turn into match-winning scores. But at the end of the day, India did bowl well as well. So I guess from a communication perspective, we really tried to take it to where our game plan allows us to launch from.
Hi Glenn. In the previous game, New Zealand innings kind of got stuck in the middle, and that was, we believe, one of the reasons why the match ended up the way it did for you guys. So today, it was completely different. The approach was different. Was it something you guys pre-planned, or because when you came in, Mark had gotten out, and Devon was the batsman who got his eye, and then you took over and he took the back seat. So what was it like? Was it pre-planned or?
No, I definitely think it came down to the communication side of things again. Understanding that at number 4, if I come in the power play, the idea is to ideally not lose another wicket, but still have that sort of positive approach. And today, obviously only coming in with 3 or 4 balls to go, it allowed that next phase to start without too much of a hiccup. And I guess my role in the team is to take it, not necessarily deep, but carry on what the openers have left off and try to keep the momentum going from a positive, high, what's the word I'm looking for now? My English is gone. Low risk options, but still with the positive side of things. So, and understanding that Devon is going to do what Devon does, and if he takes it deep, he's going to end, like so often he ends on 80 or 50, and it becomes a match-winning total. So for us, I don't think there was necessarily a conscious, pre-planned way of going about things today. I definitely started my innings much slower today than I did the other night, but when you come in at 4 or at 5, the game is very set out in one way or another, and the approach you take can be very much dictated by the runs and the wickets down. So for today, the position to come in at 4 was almost ideal. It gives you the time to get in, but then the time to accelerate when I guess the situation calls for it, and allowing Devon to carry on doing his thing and not having to put him under too much pressure. And things flowed. Things flowed really nicely. And as I said, we've got Daryl behind me as well, who does that on a regular basis for us too. So I guess when a team gets 190 like they did at the Bay, you're either going to get really close or nowhere near. And unfortunately, we tried to take it a little bit deeper. And unfortunately, when you're chasing 190, that might not necessarily be the ideal option. But, when you're chasing 160 or 170, you also want a different sort of approach as well. So I guess it's really game plan and situation orientated.
Thank you very much, Glenn.